Hello and welcome to another Spirit Island video. Today, I'm going to talk about the transforming aspect for Heart of the Wildfire. This is going to be a bit more unstructured than my usual spirit guides. I'm not going to go too in depth into like a specific opening I like or anything like that, because one of the things I really like about Wildfire is that it is fairly flexible in how it plays, and well, that's not exactly the right word, I guess. I would say it's more that it tends to reward playing reactively to what's going on, both to like how the invaders are affecting the board and to like what drafts you're seeing. So it's hard to just like point at like one and done, this is what you should do, it'll yield good results, because there's a lot of things you can do. So, first of all, a quick overview. So Wildfire has this very interesting ability here, Blazing Presence. After setup, when your presence is added or moved in the land it goes to, first for each fire showing on your board, and as you can see, there's 4 different fire on this board, you deal 1 damage. So that's very strong. That's just like very like fast damage, right? It happens right before the fast phase even, and like tied to your presence placement, which like is at range 3 or range 1. But if 2 fire or more are showing on your presence tracks, you have to add a blight. So if you do more than 1 damage, so like you place 1 fire that doesn't add blight, but if you place a second fire that deals 2 damage, that also adds a blight. And then you push all beasts. You have to push all beasts. You can't choose not to. And any number of Dahan. So Dahan, you can choose not to push. So some nice fast damage and Dahan movement, but at the cost of adding blight. If you add multiple presence at the same time, only do it once, and that's like only for things like unrelenting growth, etc. Nicely, the blight added by spirit effects does not destroy your presence, including with cascades. Otherwise, it would be pretty silly. You place a presence and it immediately dies to the blight. Notably, this first special rule, Blazing Presence, will cascade if you're not careful. So like if, let's say, I added a presence here and dealt 2 damage, I would have to cascade the blight. It would place 2, not just 1. So you're really playing with fire here, very intentionally flavored. You really need to be careful about how you're growing, how your growths are very powerful, but also very dangerous. So how do you clean up that blight? Because like, of course, like you want to grow throughout the game, right? But you're going to be placing a lot of blight, so how do you clean that up? Well, base Wildfire has a very simple answer. It just has this right innate that is very boring, just removes blight, and is also somewhat hard to get to. Base Wildfire tends to be like not great because of that, because of like how slow the blight removal is, tend to play very aggressively, but like doesn't have very many defensive options. But transforming adds a different way to get rid of blight. So transforming has another very important special rule here, transform rather than consume. What this means is you just cannot fully destroy cities and towns. So how this works: when you would destroy a city, instead you still get the fear, 2 fear, but you replace the city with an explorer and a town instead of destroying it, and then push both of those invaders. They don't have to go to the same place, but notably this also doesn't trigger any like destroy effects like I don't know, blood draws predators or vengeance of the dead, for example. Similarly, when you would destroy a town, instead you get a fear and replace the town with 2 explorers. Notably, as you can see, this doesn't actually reduce the health of explorers. The health of invaders on the board, right? You convert a city, which is 3 health, into a town and an explorer, which is still 3 health, and you convert a town, which is 2 health, into 2 explorers, which is still 2 health. So you haven't really made that much progress health-wise, so you'll have to like do a lot more damage over time in order to actually clear things, because you can actually clear by killing the explorers. You get things downgraded down to like lots and lots of explorers, and then you deal with the explorers by killing them off with damage. So that obviously is a downside. You don't want, well, okay, mostly is a downside. I don't actually know. I actually don't know how this works with Ocean. I think this doesn't work with Ocean. Not certain on that, but yeah, this is going to be a downside. However, you have a very powerful right innate in order to make up for it. Exaltation of the Transforming Flame. So this is a fast power targeting another spirit, though in solo you can target yourself. So this is going to give out every turn that you hit this. First tier, target spirit may forget a power card. To gain a power card and one any, you may do likewise. All of these have this templating of you may do likewise, so the other spirit gets the effect and you also get the effect. Notably, you can forget from your discard and gain to your hand. So if I have this flash fires in my discard, for example, and I trigger this first tier, I can forget this flash fires, gain a minor, and put that in my hand, and then now I just like have +1 card in my hand, and that's nice. And that's often what you'll want to be doing with this. This is a very powerful effect, not only because it gives this any for element fixing shenanigans, but also because it helps delay reclaim. And Wildfire reclaiming can sometimes, it's weird because sometimes Wildfire really doesn't want to reclaim because it doesn't get value from Blazing Presence, but sometimes also you don't want to place more blight onto the board, so you kind of want to reclaim anyways. But this is certainly very powerful for scaling in the early game, making it so that you don't have to worry about reclaiming as much, and doing the same for other spirits. That can be huge. Also, just this one energy can also be huge, or just any spirit that has like a power card that isn't that good, like a unique power that isn't that good. Getting to replace that with another power card is so powerful. And notably, this is just gain a power card. It's not gain a minor. You will often want to take a minor on Wildfire because, for many reasons, transforming is not one of the worst spirits at playing majors, I would say. But you can take a major. Like more relevantly, the person you point this at can take a major. Notably, they have to get another power card. Next, target spirit may pay 1 energy to replace a blight with a Badlands of 1 lands. You may do likewise, and this costs 3 fire, 1 earth, and 2 plant. This is Wildfire's blight healing, and this is very powerful. You get to heal 2 blight per turn, but it costs 1 energy for each blight. And you and the other person have to be on blight in order to heal blight. That's not going to be a problem for Wildfire. Wildfire will very naturally be in lands with blight, but like you might want to coordinate with your teammates if you're playing transforming in order to let them know, hey, I might give you this. I really want you to be on some blight so I can heal some blight, turning it into Badlands. Notably, this Badlands is also very nice because the Wildfire has lots of ways of dealing damage, both from unique cards and in innates. And with this transform rather than consume special rule, you'll need to do a lot of damage across the course of the game in order to like grind through all of these explorers that you're creating. So yeah, notably, another very key fact about this innate is that it comes after the first tier here, so you will probably have this any in order to fuel this second and third tiers. So a very common play pattern is to just have like, say, let's say I have these 3 spaces uncovered, right? I have 2 fire and 2 plays for my tracks. Then I play these 2 cards, right? And as you can see, I will have 4 fire, 2 plant, and then I can use the transforming innate in order to forget a power card, gain a power card, and an any, and then I'll say, maybe I want this earth, and then now I can get this tier of transforming as well. Or maybe instead of getting the earth, I want this animal and I get the 3rd tier. Or maybe I want this plant and then I get this tier here on my left innate. It's very flexible. This is one of the reasons why I really love transforming. This like extra any, it makes it just so turns out that like it feels like you're constrained, but have a lot of options, which is like where I really love Spirit Island. So finally, this third tier, 1 sun, 3 fire, 1 animal. Target spirit may replace 1 explorer with 1 beast in one of their lands. You may do likewise. So this is also very strong. This is fast build disruption for like that you can give out. Like if you hit this tier, right? You know, someone else, you're both stopping a build. Well, theoretically, in someone else's land and in one of your lands. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And it's also like really good against some adversaries, like for example Russia. Russia explorers are very annoying. It's hard to get rid of them, but since this is a replace, it permanently gets rid of them. They don't like generate a fear and run away. And that's very, very strong against Russia. Like you would think that the fact that you make so many explorers from your transform rather than consume special rule, that like Russia would be a bad matchup for transforming, but the actual answer is that it's a really good matchup because of this innate. So all of these are very powerful. If you get everything, that's actually just one of the most powerful innates in the game for like this cost, right? You get 2 power card gains, 2 Ennies, 2 Blight heals, 2 bad lands, 2 explorer kills, and 2 beasts. And like these beasts can also be very relevant. Transforming generates some of the most beasts in the game, like way more than any of the beast spirits do even, because this adds 2 beasts per turn. If you like consistently hit it, and this beast generation, obviously, like you don't have that many ways of using it yourself, but if you're playing with something like Fangs or Many Minds, then this beast generation is going to really help them pop off, and like you can coordinate that as well. So just a lot of power in this innate, which is why this special rule exists, because otherwise this would just be absolutely busted. So I'll also go over a bit base Wildfire stuff. You have 3 growths. You're a 0/1/1 spirit. Power card and energy on reclaim. You have a power card on one of your growths, and like this is 3 or 4 energy, like 3 energy in early game, 4 energy mid game. It doesn't usually get up to 5 energy that easily. Though sometimes you'll click it for 5 energy late game, I guess. And your left innate here, you have just damage. This first tier, like so one thing about transforming is you should usually be hitting this 4 fire 1 plant threshold as often as possible, and then using that to hit your other thresholds as well. So if you're doing that, then by default, this left innate will then be 2 damage, right? Because you hit this 1 plant to get this tier, and then 1 damage for 2 fire. Well, you at least have 4, so that's 2 damage. So 2 damage, notably this is range 0 and targeting a land with Blight. So you won't generally have problems living in lands with Blight, but keep in mind that if you use your right innate to heal Blight, that might limit the targeting on your left innate and one of your cards here. In addition, at 3 plant, you get 1 damage per fire instead of 1 damage per 2 fire, so doubling the damage there. If you have 4 fire, 2 air, you get to split the damage, which is really powerful. Like I had my most recent game with transforming in the late game. I hit this and then killed 4 different explorers that were all going to build in 4 different lands. Like this was on a stage 3 card. So yeah, this can be pretty powerful. And final tier, you don't get here very often, but when you do, it can be pretty powerful. Like this generally will require support from other spirits, because like as you can see here, if you would need to like empty out this entire bottom track up to 4 plays with these 3 fire in order to get the 7 fire naturally, though you can actually get there a bit faster with this any. So theoretically something that looks like this, and all it does is you in a land with Blight where you have presence, push all Dahan, destroy all invaders and beasts out of Blight. So this 1 Blight add is actually 2 Blight add also, because that Blight would cascade, but it's a destroy all invaders, which can be very powerful if you have a very like built up land. So looking at the tracks, you end at 4 plays 3 energy, which isn't that good for a 0/1/1, but you have a lot of power in your special rule and innates. So that's why these tracks are so only okay. You have 4 fire and a plant on your tracks, but generally when I play Wildfire, I think I would say, especially for transforming Wildfire, this mostly doesn't exist. This part of the top track mostly doesn't exist. Usually you want this plays track, specifically, especially on transforming, because you're getting so many cards from this transforming innate, right? You get to gain a power card every turn, basically, and usually you want to be forgetting from your discard and gaining to hand, and buffering your hand to let you fuel these extra plays. So generally what my opening will look like is place this fire, deal a damage, and then either place this fire, deal 2 damage, or place this 2 plays, deal 1 damage, and then unlock this, and then at this point you have 2 fire, 2 plays that lets you hit your exaltation of the transforming flame. And then after that, usually you can get either here or here before you have to reclaim, and then 4 plays should be enough to end the game. And usually you just don't need this energy because this growth here, growth 3, gives you enough energy to fuel your costs. So like one thing about this hand also to note, is this is a 4-cost hand, right? So playing it is actually pretty expensive, but that's because you have this terrible card here, Flash Fires. It's 1 fear, 1 damage, pretty bad elements. Like the only thing you care about for air is this innate. So this card you often will play either once or not at all, and then forget it to transforming, the transforming innate usually. And then this card is fine because it at least like kills a town, pushes a Dahan. It does quite a lot of stuff, and also has a plant. Plant is very important because of that transforming innate. So yeah, you generally will want to avoid this 1 energy spot because this 3 plays is so good for getting you all of these thresholds as well. So yeah, that's the spirit board here. Some strategy tips and tricks. This is just going to be me mostly like rambling a bit about the spirit. Nothing too structured. I'll just say things as I think of them. So like I said, I generally like growing these 3 spots to begin with, in order to hit my transforming on turn 3, because I can play, for example, something like this. Like this card is any fire card, and as you can see, I now hit this transforming tier, and then if I like forget a power card to gain a power card in any, I can gain this animal, for example, in order to get the explorer replacement, and that's pretty powerful. So you really want to rush this transforming innate. You never want to go for this 1 energy because you really want to rush this. So yeah, you generally want to grow like this, right? The 2 fire and the 2 plays. But if you really don't want to be placing Blight, and usually you do, I'll get into why in a bit, but you can theoretically go to 3 plays instead of the 2 fire. So 3 plays, 1 fire also theoretically can threshold, for example, like this. Right, you have 3 fire cards in play. That certainly does threshold this first transforming innate. However, I don't like that because this 3 plays going this route generally actually like stunts your growth because you have to reclaim sooner. And also, I really value the 2 damage that you get from your special rule with this 2 fire. Placing the Blight is a cost, but I find that how Wildfire plays, since you don't have that many defensive options innately, right? All of your options are offensive. You really need to play at the tempo of the adversary, right? So like, let's say this explores jungles, right? So probably like this is against no adversary, but like turn 1, what I want to do is I really want to grow here, kill this explorer. You always want to be preventing builds with Wildfire because your ways of dealing with buildings adds more invaders. So killing this explorer is really good here, preventing that build. In addition, if you're just picking off explorers, that can be fine against some adversaries, but like a lot of adversaries will have ways to not let you just get value by picking off a single explorer. So you'll need this 2 damage to, for example, kill this town after it builds or something, or like kill this town so it doesn't build a city, stuff like that. Another note, on your first or second growth, you should always consider trying to grow into these already blighted lands, because notably, as I mentioned, your special rule here will, when it adds blight, it will cascade if there's already blight. So if you're placing presence with 2 fire unlocked already, and you want to, for example, deal with a town here, if you place here, that will cost 2 light instead of just 1. So that's not great. But if you grow there earlier, when there's only 1 fire uncovered, then you won't need to place blight. One of the things to worry about with Wildfire is you are actually fairly limited in what lands you're affecting. And that's something you need to keep in mind quite a lot. Because your left innate here, right, is 0 range and also has to target a land with blight, and like all the tiers care about your lands with blight, a land with blight where you have presence, right? So you need to make sure that the lands that you like need to affect and deal lots of damage in need to have blight in them and also be 0 range, like at your presence, and that's fairly constraining. Like if a land here, right, already has a blight, let's say like this built and then ravaged and then like it comes up later, right? Well, now it's really hard for me to deal with this, because like I could grow into here, right, and kill this town, and then like put 2 explorers into here from transforming, right? But that would cost a blight cascade, and then I could then deal 4 damage here and clear it, but like 2 blight is quite a lot to pay. You're always going to be like placing blight as Wildfire. There's just no avoiding it. So any extra blight that you can prevent is very, very valuable, because you only have a limited supply. Let's see, what other notes? Oh, don't forget that you always have to push all beasts, even when you don't add blight, and you can push any number of Dahan. This can be useful for herding Dahan to places where you have like a harder time affecting. For example, like with this initial explorer of jungles, right? If I grow into here, kill this explorer, I might want to push these 2 Dahan into the sands, because it's unclear if I'll be able to deal with the sands. And with so many card gains, I can see a lot of defense. Oh, that's defense are a good point. So normally, like normal Wildfire has very little access to like defensive tools, because you just don't get that many drafts. You don't have like much energy, because it takes 2 growths until you get to 1 energy. So you'll often have to click this G3 more, and you won't have to be able to choose G2 in order to gain power cards that much. But transforming has a very natural way to gain power cards with your transforming innate. So you will see a lot of power cards. You should basically always be taking minors. And because of that, you can pick up good defense. And notably, because your special rule is so good at moving Dahan, you really want to be positioning these Dahan in places where you're not planning on growing into, right? Where you plan on not being able to like deal with that land particularly effectively, right? Like maybe this land that's already blighted, you don't want to grow into it because it'll cause a cascade. Just push some Dahan into there, pick up a defense, that'll be nice. Or like a really built up land where like if you try to kill everything in it, it'll just like generate even more material and be annoying that way. If the Dahan deal damage for you with defend, then you won't trigger the transforming downside. In terms of why I don't like majors, and I really like minors on Wildfire, for one thing, your elements are like somewhat constrained, because like you really want your cards to have fire. Because like once you're at this point, right, 2 fire and some number of plays, you really want to be able to play 2 fire cards every turn in order to get this transforming innate, right? And you also really want to have a plant card every turn. And you start with 3 plant cards, which is great. And one thing to note is you might want to space out these plant cards so that you can hit this every turn. But there's also this pressure of wanting this 3 plant in order to get double the damage on your left innate. So your elements are fairly constrained. Even though you have this any, you often will want to use this any in order to like fuel your other innates. So like you still really want a lot of elements, right? Like ideally you have 4 fire, 2 plant, 1 earth, 1 sun, and 1 animal, and that's just quite a lot of things, right? And you can fudge one of them with 1 any, but like you only get that 1 any from here. And like you might want this 3 plant as well. So you're fairly constrained in terms of elements, so that makes majors harder to pick up, and you're also fairly constrained in terms of energy as well, because like you have 0 energy income, and like you can use this energy option, but that comes at the cost of like getting more cards, which like more cards is pretty powerful. And finally, the reason why transforming Wildfire is especially bad for majors is because like any damage major, right, is going to be quite bad with your transforming special rule, right? You already have a lot of damage. You don't need more damage. The problem is that like these this downside, right, means you need like all that damage, and like extra damage. Like if you somehow threshold a cast down on Wildfire, it's not going to be that good because you're going to dump a bunch of stuff onto another board. I think that's how that works. But like basically, like killing a bunch of stuff is not actually as productive on Wildfire. What Wildfire wants to do is deal with those small problems, like play at the tempo of the adversary, and like make sure that the adversary, like you're just keeping everything in check, while supporting your teammates with your right innate, and like eventually building up and like clearing your board. So another important aspect of that is that you also want to pocket quite often. So sometimes it's like, for example, with this explorer, right? Let's say this was like more like a turn 2 explorer, so I had 2 damage, right? So maybe instead of stopping this build here, what I'm actually supposed to do, like let's say this is all the way in the corner, like there's some boards, there's like a board here and like a board here and a board here or something, and so like this is in the corner. Maybe instead of dealing with this explorer, what I want to do is grow into here with a blight or something. Like let's say I could get 2 fire in this hypothetical situation, right? Kill this town, transforming it into 2 explorers here, and then deal with this explorer with my left innate, right? And this is actually like a very reasonable play, especially since this land has 2 Dahan, so if I can just grow near it and find a defend, that also solves that. But like then also I have pocketed quite a lot of my inland, well, depending on how many buildings are on adjacent boards. And if you have fewer things to deal with, then like you can get further ahead, because like Wildfire is very powerful at dealing with like small problems, not very good at dealing with big problems, except for Firestorm, but that is a very special case. Like full Firestorm, I mean full left innate, this 7 fire threshold. So yeah, let's see, other tips and tricks. A very important note, whenever you transform with Wildfire, like the downside that causes invaders to not actually get killed, right? So here, you know, I started with Explore Town, I grew into here, added the Blight and dealt 2 damage, killing this town. The question is, where do I push these 2 explorers, right? I can push them in any combination of these 3 lands here. The answer is almost always push them into a land where you already have presence and blight, because these lands you're very good at dealing with your left innate, right? There will be some like this turn, right? I probably want to pick off this explorer, but there will definitely be some turns where I'll just have like some excess damage I don't know where to throw. I'll just kill these 2 explorers, or even just like the transforming innate here, right? Having explorers randomly in your lands that aren't doing anything can be nice, just so that like if you like in this case, right? Oh, I've already cleared all the explorers in my other lands. Might as well just get rid of this explorer, replace it with the beast. The value of this innate, like whether you want the blight versus the explorer transformation, it really varies. It depends on like how much energy you have to pay to replace blight. It depends on how much you care about healing blight. It depends on how much the beast and explorer replacement is worth to you. Like against Russia, I would definitely rather be replacing explorers with beasts than healing blight. Though healing blight is also powerful. It's just like getting 2 explorer replacements is like really powerful against Russia. Against like let's say I don't know, Sweden or something, I probably don't need to be constantly replacing the explorers from Sweden. I can probably just pick them off with like all my other damage, and then I want to heal the blight against Sweden or something. So it's really dynamic in how you play it. It really depends on what cards you get, what the invaders are doing, what adversary you're playing against. So one thing to note here, I said like turn 3 is when you can transform, right? When you can get this 4 fire, 1 plant. However, support is very good on Wildfire, because like any card play or element support specifically on turn 2, because on turn 2 you can generally get to 3 fire, 1 plant, right? This is what turn 2 probably looks like, so either that or something like this with an extra card play. So if you just get that 1 extra fire, and that can come with an element like Elemental Boon, for example, can also help you hit other transforming aspects, or it can come with just like an extra card play, right? Like if you unlock the 2 fire but not the 2 plays, but also get a second play cheated in, then that lets you use transforming, which, like, you know, if you're receiving an elemental boon to get transforming, then you can pass that forward that turn immediately to like give someone else an element, right? So that's something very important to keep in mind with transforming Wildfire. You really want support on turn 2, and that like can be passed forward and like magnify that support, which is very nice. Yeah, let's see. Anything else that comes to mind? Oh, drafts. Drafts are very important on transforming. You'll see a lot of drafts, and you generally want to be drafting the minors, right? So there's a lot of things that go into like what cards you want. I think Wildfire is very interesting because there's a good balance in Wildfire's drafts of wanting to draft for effect, wanting to draft for elements, and also wanting to draft for energy cost, where like you'll see a lot of cards, so you'll be able to get those like really good cards, like for example Gift of Constancy, right, or Gift of Living Energy is a standout, Gift of Nature's Connection, Call the Card, things like that, Sap, right? And like you might notice that all of these are 0 cost I pulled out. Nature's Resilience is a 1 cost, right? And there's a lot of different trade-offs that you'll need to balance around. So notably, as I mentioned, you really want to be playing 2 fire cards every turn. So the number of non-fire cards you can take, like Nature's Resilience or Call the Guard or Sap, is somewhat limited. However, that's not to say that you shouldn't take these. In fact, like Sap, Nature's like Defend. Specifically, 1-range defend is very strong in Wildfire because it lets you deal with the lands that you're not in. So something like Nature's Resilience or Threshold at Sap or Call the Guard is going to be very valuable. However, you can't take too many of these, otherwise you can't hit your transforming innate. And like the power of transforming Wildfire is this transforming innate. I think the best card for Wildfire might just be Gift of Living Energy, because it's 0 cost, has that fire plant and even the sun to threshold the Explorer replacement innate, which is funny. But yeah, this card is very, very good. Also, you can target yourself with it and fix your energy problems a bit. So yeah, Wildfire cares about fire. It cares about having 0 costs because it has 0 energy income, and like not having to like take this energy means more opportunities to draft and see more good cards. But you know, Nature's Resilience is still a very good card. You still like really probably want to pick this up. Probably not over Gift of Living Energy, but like if your other options are mediocre, like you should draft for effect as well. Specifically the defense on Wildfire. Defense are very good. Fire cards are very good. 0 cost fire cards are very good. Like if it's a 0 cost fire card, it kind of doesn't really matter what the effect is. It's just going to be good. 1 cost fire cards are also very good. Plant cards are also good. Like if it has plant but not fire, that's still helpful because like once you get to this 3 plays, right, you could play 2 fire cards that don't have plant and a plant card that doesn't have fire, and that hits your transforming innate. Let's see, any other interesting cards? Damage cards are probably worse. Support cards, you'll find a lot of really good support cards on Wildfire just because you're digging through the support deck. The strong support cards are strong. Like you should take Spur, you should take Elemental Boon, you should take Gift of Nature's Connection, Gift of Power. You probably don't need to take Gift of Power, I would say. I think like this still isn't a bad card, right? But you really can't use that many of the elements. The moon and the water are useless to you. The earth is nice for the blight healing innate, and the plant is nice as well because you need plant. 0 cost is nice, but you're already giving out so many powers. You probably don't need more power boon effects. So like if there's a better card, you should probably like it's not a better card. Gift of Power is a very good card. If there's a card that does more, right, to affect the board, or like is a 0 cost fire element instead of a 0 cost plant element, you might want to take that instead. That's like one of the weird ones that gets worse on Wildfire. Damage is worse on Wildfire, I guess, because of transforming just slightly. Let's see. Blight healing can be also interesting because like having blight healing near you can be quite nice, for like opening up places that you can grow without cascading. 0 cost fire plants are of course very good. This Quicken is amusingly slightly worse on Wildfire because the defend 10 at 0 range isn't that useful because usually the lands you care about protecting are not your 0 range sacred site, because like usually with Wildfire you start with a triple stack and this is the only sacred site you'll ever have the entire game, because like growing into land you're already in is usually counterproductive. Usually like you already have a blight in there, though I guess if you've healed your blight and then later it becomes a problem again, you might want to grow into there to re-clear that land, but it's just like less likely. Constancy is constancy. However, I will note constancy is also slightly worse on Wildfire because you're already getting like so much reclaim support from the just pseudo reclaim support, I guess, from the transforming innate. You don't need this, and also it doesn't have fire or plant. But of course, constancy is constancy. It's still very good. You should take it probably. Yeah, there's not much else to say about the minor power deck. Just like draft strong effects, draft 0 costs, draft fire and plant cards. That's mostly everything. And one range defense, or I should say not one range, just like more than 0 range defense. Like, I had my most recent transforming Wildfire game, Confounding Mists, like completely off element basically, but it was still very, very good in allowing me to solve lands I couldn't get to. So yeah, I think that's about everything with this spirit that I wanted to go over. I'm probably gonna make some gameplay videos. Probably gonna be two-handing because like single player Wildfire is kind of weird. I'll do like Wildfire plus another spirit against a random level 6 or something, like a random spirit, just to show off some of the play patterns of transforming Wildfire. It's a very powerful spirit. Definitely like in the top half of spirits, I would say. It can definitely hold its own. It has some weak matchups. England comes to mind. Wildfire, transforming Wildfire is kind of horrible against England. Killing a city turns it into a town, which is not great. And like the things having extra health does not help. And like you can't do the fast explorer control at all, which also does not help. But yeah, yeah, it's a very fun spirit. It's very dynamic. It really tests like how much can you play to the tempo of the adversary, which is fun, and you also get to support people, which can also be fun. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. A bit of a different one, a bit of a ramble. Hope this was helpful. Hope it wasn't too unorganized. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.